ตอนนั้นน่ะทำไมถึงตัดสินใจย้ายจาก ISB ไปอเมริกา
ตอนนั้นอยู่ ISB เราเกรดก็ไม่ได้ดีไม่ค่อยได้ตั้งใจในคลาสแต่ก็ไปเรียนซัมเมอร์ที่ Eagle Brook แล้วก็ไปเรียนซัมเมอร์ที่ Exeter เราก็คุณพ่อคุณแม่ก็เห็นว่าชอบมากก็เลยอยากพุชว่าถ้าเกิดชอบเหมือน boarding school environment เราไม่ค่อย fit ISB why don't you take the risk so I started two startups my first startup Scout Learning Pods was kind of a temporary startup and then when classes went back to school my co-founder and I from the same startup decided to start a venture-backed company it's still ongoing we just raised $20 million total going well
$20 millionสวัสดีครับทุกท่านวันนี้รู้สึกเป็นเกียรติมากพี่เอ finally catch up with long lost friends again I call him friends นะครับวันนี้เราก็ยินดีต้อนรับ Just ครับยูนครับสวัสดีครับสวัสดีครับเราไม่ได้เจอกันกี่ปีนะ Just
ตั้งแต่ครั้งแรกที่เจอกันก็มากกว่า10ปีนะ middle school
ใช่ middle school
post college
ใช่จำได้ครั้งแรกที่เราเจอกันเตรียม SSAT ใช่แล้วจาก SSAT เนี่ยเราก็ move from ISB to St. Paul นะครับแล้วก็ you did amazing thing SSAT ขอ praise นิดนึง 99% ถ่ายทุกพาร์ทครับ โหดมากตอนนั้นน่ะทำไมถึงตัดสินใจย้ายจาก ISB ไปอเมริกา
จริงๆเราไม่ได้เป็นความตัดสินใจของตัวเองก็เป็นของคุณพ่อนะ ตอนนั้นอยู่ ISB เราเกรดก็ไม่ได้ดีไม่ค่อยได้ตั้งใจในคลาสแต่ก็ไปเรียนซัมเมอร์ที่ Eagle Brook แล้วก็ไปเรียนซัมเมอร์ที่ Exeter เราก็คุณพ่อคุณแม่ก็เห็นว่าชอบมากก็เลยอยากพุชว่าถ้าเกิดชอบเหมือน boarding school environment เราไม่ค่อย fit ISB why don't you take the risk แล้วก็เลยตอนนั้นก็ apply แต่จริงๆเราก็ไม่ได้ take serious มากก็ถูก wait list ทุกที่เลย Exeter Andover St. Paul's ก็ถูก wait listแต่ก็โชคดีได้ got off the wait list last minute แล้วก็ the rest is history
เป็น destiny แล้วไลฟ์ที่เซนต์พอลกับไลฟ์ที่ ISB ต่างกันไหม
ต่างกันมาก I would characterize it as St. Paul's you're truly on your own everyone is lives in a dorm if you need help you ask for help from your friends or from the teachers that live in your dorm but at ISB you always get to go home right? You always get to go back to your parents, go back to your family with all the good and bad of that. The big difference for me was that St. Paul's was a place where you had to be alone. You had to know how to live by yourself, take care of yourself, be confident in yourself.
เราคิดว่า major growth หรือว่า transformation จากการที่ move จาก ISB ไป St. Paul เนี่ยคืออะไร
I think this is ironic to say, but humility. I think at St. Paul's, I went in thinking I was pretty special, smart, good at sports, even though I'm not. I came from a well-off family, but then you go to boarding school and you realize everyone is kind of like that. There's not really doesn't matter how rich you are, doesn't matter how smart you are, or how good at sports. If you're not able to be a good person, if you're not able to be kind, treat others well, no one's gonna want to be your friend or want to interact with you at all. So I think that's something that you really learn at boarding school rather than at ISB. If you want to get anywhere, you need to be a bit more humble and have a bit more humility than you would.
สั้นๆก็คือว่าตอนเราอยู่ที่ ISB เนี่ยมันเหมือนกับเป็นเพื่อนเป็น family friends ที่เรารู้จักกันมาส่วนหนึ่งแล้วแต่พอตอนไป St. Paul เนี่ยมันเป็นก้าวแรกที่ทำให้ just define yourself ครับ among your friends but yourself ด้วยเหมือนกันที่จะ discover ว่าเราชอบอะไรเราไม่ชอบอะไรเราได้ลองหลายๆอย่างพร้อมกันใช่ไหมครับเล่นกีฬาเป็นยังไงบ้างที่ St. Paul
At St. Paul's I did two main sports one I've played my entire life which was soccer and that was as fun as it's always been it's been my first love and then the second sport which is one I'd never even heard about before St. Paul's is rowing So I was a coxswain for rowing, where I would yell at the rowers to go faster. So that I've never participated before. On my first day doing the sport, I crashed a boat worth $50,000.
Wow!
And then I cried myself to sleep. And then the next day I went again. And I ended up doing it at college as well. So.
Oh. That academic, St. Paul is really strong. เรามีเทคนิคที่ทำให้เรียนได้ดีที่เซนต์พอลยังไงครับ
I think what I learned very quickly was that there's no one telling you to do your homework anymore. So you get to learn the consequences really quickly, which is if you do your homework, you'll be fine. If you don't do your homework, there's no more excuses, right? You can't just be like, oh, like my mom wanted me to do something. Like everything is under your responsibility. So I think academic, it just, for me at least, it made me take responsibility.
พี่ว่าอันนี้เป็น first step แล้วก็ big step ด้วย so if any kids any child can take responsibility of their own life เนี่ย you sum up very good ตอนที่คุณครู teach ที่เซนต์พอลกับที่เมืองไทยมันมี vibe ที่ต่างกันไหมครับ
I think the biggest difference is definitely in humanities. There's more of a focus. I think the technical education, so like math, science, ISB and Thailand is actually very good at that because in that area you just need to challenge the student with harder and harder material. But I think in the humanities there was a lot more, I would say, thought put into the curriculum and effort into how students approach it, where it wasn't simply like reviewing a text, but trying to connect it with your life. So you read like Catcher in the Rye when you were also 14, 15, trying to figure out what you wanted out of your life. You read like Steinbeck at a time when you're learning about historical context, early America, for example. So I think there's much more understanding of like the material in humanities.
Okay, that's more in depth and breadth also. ถ้าเกิดเราคุยกับคุณพ่อคุณแม่ที่กำลังตัดสินใจว่าจะส่งลูกไป boarding school ที่อเมริกาดีหรือเปล่าเพราะ it sounds really far away. What would be your suggestion หรือว่า your experience ที่อยู่คิดว่า this is factors that you need to consider?
I think the same way I looked at colleges a lot was that you could have a school that is a good fit and a student will enjoy it, but that might not be the right choice anyway. If it's a lot of times for me, if I'm too comfortable in a place, I won't have the highest performance. I'll be lazier if it's easy or if I'm having fun or I'm happier. So I think for a lot of parents, that's one consideration is not only is your child gonna enjoy it, but is it somewhere that's gonna push them to look at different perspectives, take on different challenges, meet different people.
You sum up very well. จากประสบการณ์ของพี่เนี่ยให้เด็กโตให้เด็กเป็น self driven ทำอย่างไรก็ได้ให้เกิด process นี้เร็วที่สุดอะพี่คิดว่ามัน ignite initiate growth ได้แบบ very effective มันเป็น lifelong skills ที่ทุกคน should master ตอนที่อยู่ไปเซนต์พอลเป็น very good school very competitive you prepare สำหรับ college application เพราะตอนนี้แม่ก็จะกังวลว่าเฮ้ยอยู่เมืองไทยนะเราทำนู่นทำนี่ได้เยอะแต่พอการที่ไป boarding school เนี่ย times มันจะ limit นะครับ
ที่เซนต์พอลส์มันจะแตกต่างกับที่เมืองไทยอย่างหนึ่งคือ the preparation is very organic. Like, for example, I wrote my essay, I think start of senior year, and by the time I submitted it, I had maybe 15 different people read and edit my essay. So I didn't put in more time than other people on my essay. But because everyone is applying to college at the same time, and there's so many resources, if you really want help, you could get people critiquing your application, your peers, people who applied the year before you, who are about to apply the year after. You could get so many different sources of help, of advice from teachers and students. So I think that's like what I really appreciated was there was an entire environment of people applying to colleges. So you had a lot of actual experts, even though they were also in the same process as you. So I think a lot of my application was actually copied off of my friends.
Winning formula from the one that have done before you. I love the word organic. And I think this is really crucial. Can you explain more about the organic preparation that St. Paul enable you to do it?
Yeah. I think there's a different level of expectation where at St. Paul's, everyone is expected to apply to an Ivy League college. It's not just the top students. Everyone is expected to apply. It might be Cornell is your reach, or it might be Harvard is your reach, but regardless, you'll have an Ivy League or you have a top 10 school in your reach. I think what that gives rise to is that students are constantly thinking about college for better or worse. So you'll have a lot of pressure to prep with like just from being in that environment. So that's what I kind of mean by organic, is that because everyone is in the same process, you're constantly preparing anyway. You're always thinking about testing or essays or things like that. Your conversations at lunch are going to be about it. So it's a stressful environment, but it does push you to come out with a great application.
Can imagine ได้เลยว่าเหมือนทุกคน keep carry on the same conversation about college application, so it's kind of drive you and move you forward, and at the same time youก็ keep pushing, keep doing things. พี่ว่า process เนี้ยมันเป็น learning process ดีมากนะเพราะว่าพี่เวลาคุยกับนักเรียนเวลาสมัครเข้า university เนี่ยเวลาอยู่ทำ organic activities, when you write essay ที่มัน ask you to stop and think about yourself before going to college พี่ว่ามันเป็น very valuable period of time ที่อยู่จะ mark ว่า this is my high school ending and the next chapter will begin.
Even to this day, I still do self-reflections every year or so.
Wow.
So like just to like reflect on like the past year, what I've gotten better at, what I've gotten worse.
That is what I have just learned. จริงๆแล้วการ stop and think เนี่ยพี่ว่ามันเป็น growth catalyst นะพี่ชอบมากเรื่อง application ที่เวลานักเรียน stop and think แล้วก็ answer those questions ที่มันทำให้อยู่แบบเกิด self realization. In story short เนี่ย what led you to apply for Columbia?
This is pretty funny. So I ED'd to Columbia and I chose it out of a hat, out of 3 different schools. So it was Pomona, Princeton, and Columbia. And the reason Columbia was in there was because I hadn't visited yet. And all the schools I visited, I didn't like.
Okay. So you chose Columbia because the school that you have visited?
Yeah. I knew the 12, 13 colleges I wanted to apply at. I was pretty high achieving and high aiming. It wasn't really like a hard decision to make my list. I just kind of went US News. Top 15, picked it, but I didn't know which one I actually wanted to go to. All the ones I visited, in my head, I found a way to nitpick. Oh, like there's too much walking, the weather is too hot, it's too cold. So I was like in my own head about it. So at the very end, I was like, fine, I haven't looked at these 3 schools. I'll ED to one of them.
Okay.
And everything is gonna be a surprise. So it's not a good way to approach choosing your college. I don't recommend it.
So if you could turn back the clock, what would be different approach that you would suggest the student who are applying for the college this year?
I think I got lucky. I think if I chose a college that I would have really fit in, it would have probably been Pomona or Claremont.
Yes.
Like a smaller school. But I think Columbia pushed me more, or at least pushed me in a direction that I'm naturally not a very type A person. But I think that I needed an environment that was a bit more results-based type A rather than a more relaxed liberal arts environment. So I think I got lucky in that regard. So maybe my advice would be look for what you think you're lacking rather than what you think your strengths are, and find a college that matches your weaknesses rather than your strengths.
พี่เห็น just ตั้งแต่ตอนเด็กๆเลยนะว่าจริงๆแล้ว environment ของ Columbia match กันอยู่นะอยู่เป็นคนที่เหมือน sponge absorb challenge yourself learning new skills พี่ว่า you at the end คือ you pick up the right place จริงๆแล้วตอนที่ you apply เข้าไปเนี่ย major หรือ college อะไรที่ you apply ไปตอนนั้น
When I was applying, I still do, I was an avid reader and I really wanted to become a writer, a fiction writer. So I actually applied in my application as a comparative literature major, which I didn't know what it actually was.
That's funny.
Which is also a mistake, so don't copy that as well. But I think what came across my application, at least in my terms of passion and interest, wasn't really about like the specific major. The box was that 1, I really like stories. And 2, I really wanted to be part of building or creating a story. So I kind of put that as like the theme of my application, and it worked out. But then at Columbia, when I actually got into college, the class that resonated with me first was an introduction to philosophy class. It was actually at Barnard that I took with a close friend of mine, and then I ended up choosing philosophy as my first major. And then I realized that it wasn't gonna get me a job. So I picked up computer science.
That's a big shift. Philosophy to computer science. How did you kind of like manage, to jump across such a big gap?
I think people think they're different, but at a very core level, they're very similar. So philosophy, there's a part of philosophy that is very much about logic, about how like the world works at its most fundamental building blocks. Computer science is the same way. You use like rules to build patterns and structures into a program eventually. I think that both that side of things attracted me to both philosophy and computer science. I just liked how computer science was studied in university more than how philosophy was studied. When you study philosophy in university, it's a lot of talking around a circle and a lot of discussing like the minute details. Computer science, how you study in university, is you get a lot of projects that you get to actually do and try to solve. So that was more fun for me. So I gravitated from, I came in wanting to be a writer, picked up philosophy because I had fun doing it, and then realized I wanted more of a technical, hard skill, especially for career prospects afterwards, and then found computer science.
พี่คิดว่า from what I've been talking to you right until now เพราะว่ามีช่วงหนึ่งที่พอตอนอยู่เข้าไปโคลัมเบียแล้วเราไม่ค่อยได้คุยกันบ่อยพี่รู้สึกว่า just know exactly what you want and so how did you discover how did you come up in such a clear realization that okay I need to shift from philosophy to computer science and I need to jump across the gap I need to pick up skills so how could you come up with such a powerful and moving conversation with yourself to make the changes?
There's a framework I use making decisions, which is actually also copied from Amazon. So Amazon has a framework, I'm not sure if I'm getting this completely right, but they have one-way and two-way doors. So whenever you look at a decision, a two-way door is a decision that you can make that decision and you can take it back. It's not a permanent change. A one-way door is you go through that door, you can't ever come back. I think picking up computer science was always a two-way door because even if I did computer science and I didn't like it, no harm, no foul. I waste a class choice that I would have probably used on something stupid anyway. So I viewed it as something that was very low risk actually, where at the very least I get a technical skill that I could put on my resume even if it wasn't actually a skill that I had. At the very least, I'd learn or at least explore a new subject that had a lot of real-world applications. So I never viewed it as like a choice I had to make. It just became a choice when I realized that I like this more than what I was doing before.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it was conscious, but it was maybe planned.
So every step that you have taken, you pass a lot of thinking process. And at the end, your degree ก็คือเป็น computer engineer หรือ
So I double majored in the end. I also had to take summer school to get both degrees.
แต่ story ที่เวลา just เล่าเนี่ยมันดูเหมือนแบบ very easy นะ that philosophy and then computer engineer and then okay such and such but at the end เนี่ยตอนอยู่จบ Columbia you did something amazing also. Can you share with us what have you done with your degree and your passions about computers afterward?
So actually, I graduated during COVID. I didn't have a job during COVID. So I did kind of the next best thing, which is make your own job. So I started 2 startups. My first startup, Scout Learning Pods, was kind of a temporary startup, somewhat inspired by EPA actually. We matched tutors, but with very little children. So people who need like 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old kids who were supposed to be nursery care but had to stay at home because of COVID. We matched them in a kind of learning pod style. So we actually set that up for mostly foster cares in New York, and that was during a COVID. So that was my first startup. And then when classes went back to school, my co-founder and I, from the same startup, decided to start a venture-backed company in the education space as well. This time related to how Americans, college students, pay for and finance their education. So I started a company. That was my second company technically after college. It's still ongoing. We just raised $20 million total. Going well.
$20 million. Big achievement. And I can see a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of creativity has been put into that phase. So I think this is what I call you found your dream แล้ว you ก็ know how to execute it แล้ว you คิดว่า next chapter in your life you อยากทำอะไรให้มันเกิดขึ้น
I have 2 post-it notes on my wall that I look at every day.
Yes.
One is to don't be scared of hard things.
Yes.
And the other is always have a thesis. So that's 2 guidelines I always use. It's something I really like. because I realized that if I have enough conviction and if I have enough belief in a problem, a solution, an idea, I don't really need the discipline or the motivation because I believe in it. I believe I can execute on it. So the next chapter idea, I have a few things. One is I actually want to write a book. I want to kind of go back to my childhood dream of being an author and write a fantasy book. The second is a problem that I've started looking into and I've become more and more passionate about, which is the demographic crisis of Thailand and a lot of the world, where for Thailand specifically, in 2020, around 10% of Thailand was over 60 years old. In 2030, no, you're 30 years old, right?
Keep really crying. I'll be in those group.
Yeah.
Okay.
In 2030 or 2035, around 30% of
Yes.
Thailand will be over 60. So you're having the largest demographic shift in human history that we've seen so far, where people are there's the percent of population that is old and not going to support themselves is going to be twice, 3 times higher than we've ever seen. So I think there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of issues that come from that.
Yes.
Combine that with other kind of trends and movements like AI, robotics. There's a lot of opportunity and a lot of room to explore. So I'm hoping to build my thesis in that area.
Okay. I'm looking forward to hear something at last. But not least, can you ฝาก message สำหรับน้องๆที่อยู่ที่ high school ว่าตอนนี้ต้องโฟกัสต้องทำอะไรหรือว่าเป็น message ที่สำคัญ
I think don't spend too much time caring about yourself and care more about other people. I think looking back, some of the best investments you can make is with people. Instead of caring about your own grades, your own achievements, helping other people pay off a lot more in the long run. I think the connections you make in high school, in college, those relationships are investments that will pay off for the rest of your life.
And any message for parents? Because I'm sure that parents, they would have like at most จากที่พี่เคยเห็นเนี่ยมีลูก6คนอะไรขนาดนี้นะครับแต่ละคนก็คือจะjoy journey กับ their own child เลยถามว่ามี message อะไรที่จะ talk to parents ไหมครับ
Speaking from my own experience, you could go harder on your kids. They're tougher than you think they are, and they make more excuses than you think they do. So you could go harder on them and they'll be fine.
Okay.
You could push them a little bit more.
Okay.
It's probably not what the kids wanted to hear.
More love, more tough. That makes sense. วันนี้พี่ขอบคุณ Just มากที่สละเวลามาให้พี่นะครับแล้วก็แชร์ tips แล้วก็ very insightful story แล้วก็ experience ให้ทุกคนได้เรียนรู้จากตรงนี้ในอนาคตเราอาจจะค่อยๆคุยกัน update from time to time แล้ว hope to talk to you again ขอบคุณมากครับจ๊ะสวัสดีครับ